Lethal force authorized. Repeat, lethal force authorized. Commander Zillax's voice cracked across every comm channel in the Galactic Military Academy as his four eyes locked onto the security monitor. A Valkyrian predator cub, striped death incarnate, apex species, 47 confirmed cadet fatalities across 3 centuries, was charging full sprint across the combat arena floor toward the new human exchange teacher. Toward Amelia Williams, who was just standing there. "Why isn't she moving?" Cadet Kael'thas shouted from the observation gallery, his mandibles clicking in panic. Around him, 200 cadets from 17 different species pressed against the reinforced glass, their various respiratory systems working overtime. The evacuation klaxon screamed, red emergency lights bathing everything in the color of blood. "Get the response teams in there now!" Zillax slammed his appendage against the console. On screen, the cub's muscular form rippled with each bound, claws extended, dorsal spines fully erect, every biological indicator of an imminent kill strike. The Academy's threat assessment system blazed red warnings across 3 monitors. Critical threat. Lethal engagement imminent. 0 survival probability. The human should have been running, should have been screaming, should have been doing literally anything except what she was actually doing, which was tilting her head slightly, adjusting her stance into something that looked almost relaxed. "Security Chief, where are my response teams?" Zillax's voice pitched higher. 40 seconds out, sir. But the security chief's transmission wavered. "Sir, protocol says we can't fire if there's a civilian in the kill zone. We'd hit the human. The human is already dead if we don't." Zillax froze mid-sentence. On the monitor, Amelia Williams had just done something that made every single one of his neural clusters misfire simultaneously. She crouched down. "What is she doing?" Professor Vexia, the Academy's senior xenobiology instructor, materialized at Zillax's shoulder, her translator barely keeping pace with her chittering alarm. "That's submission posture. That's prey behavior. The cub will interpret that as, 'I know what it means,'" Zillax roared, already mentally composing the incident report that would end his career. 300 years. 300 years of perfect safety records. And a human was going to die on his watch in the most preventable, most horrifically documented way possible. The cub closed the distance. 15 meters. 10. 5. In the observation gallery, a Xylothian cadet fainted. Another started praying in 3 languages simultaneously. Kael'thas couldn't look away, even though every survival instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to do anything except watch what was about to happen. Amelia Williams extended her hand. Her hand, toward a Valkyrian cub, toward claws that could shred reinforced hull plating, toward jaws that could crush bone alloy, toward a creature that had killed trained soldiers that had never, not once in recorded history, failed to attack when approached. "Get me the Valkyrian ambassador," Zillax whispered, his vocal sacs deflating. "Get me the Academy board. Get me—" He stopped, stared at the monitor. The cub had slowed. "That's impossible," Vexia breathed. "The attack reflex triggers at 3 meters. It's autonomic, it's genetic, it's—" The cub's dorsal spines were lowering. Fractionally, microscopically, but lowering. Amelia Williams' voice came through the arena's audio pickup, clear and utterly unconcerned. "Hey there, sweetheart. Someone's having a big day, huh?" Sweetheart? Sweetheart? Zillax felt something in his brain break. The human was using a diminutive, affectionate term for a creature that was, at this exact moment, deciding whether to kill her. "Sir, response teams in position," security reported. "Awaiting your order to—" Hold, Zilak said faintly. Everyone, hold. Because the cub had stopped advancing entirely. 3 meters away from the human, exactly where its attack instinct should have triggered. Where every recorded encounter had resulted in immediate lethal engagement. The creature's ears, triangular, razor-tipped, capable of tracking prey across kilometers, were flickering, back and forth. Its head lowered slightly, those predator eyes locked on Amelia Williams, who was still crouched, still had her hand extended, still looked like she was waiting for something. "This can't be happening," Vexia whispered. "This violates every—" Amelia Williams made a soft clicking sound with her tongue. The Valkyrian cub's tail twitched. In the observation gallery, 200 cadets held their collective breath as one impossible moment stretched into another, and the universe's understanding of predator and prey began to quietly, irreversibly shatter. "Sir, sonic deterrence locked on target," Security Chief R. Hill reported, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "One pulse, and the cub will—" "Negative," Zilak snapped. "The frequency will rupture the human's eardrums. She'll be incapacitated, and then the cub will—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't voice what every tactical simulation in the database predicted would happen next. "Chemical sedation," Vexia offered desperately, her claws scratching against the console. "Fast-acting neural suppressant, we could—" "Concentration required would render the human unconscious before the cub," Zilak said flatly, his eyes never leaving the monitor. "She'd collapse. Movement triggers chase response. We'd be handing the cub a—" "Energy containment field?" someone suggested from across the command center. "And trap her in there with it?" Zilak's voice cracked again. Every protocol, every contingency, every fail-safe the Academy had developed over 3 centuries assumed one fundamental constant. If a Valkyrian cub engaged, the target was already dead. Survival wasn't a variable they'd planned for, because survival had never been possible. Until now. Maybe. If whatever impossible thing was happening on that arena floor continued happening. Amelia Williams shifted her weight, settling more comfortably into her crouch. "That's it, baby," she cooed in a sing-song voice that made Zilak's translator spike with confusion. "Baby? Baby." The linguistic database offered 17 translations, all equally absurd in context. "You're okay. Nobody's gonna hurt you." "She's using juvenile-directed speech patterns," Vexia whispered, her scientific training warring with the evidence of her own eyes. That's maternal vocalization. But Valkyrians don't respond to— They can't respond to. The cub's ears flattened, not back in aggression. Sideways. In confusion? "Get me Professor Zorinix," Zilak said quietly. "Now. And get me the Valkyrian embassy. I don't care what time it is on their homeworld. I need their cultural attaché on comms in the next 30 seconds, or I'm filing a formal diplomatic incident." "Recording everything, sir," R. Hill confirmed. 17 different angles, full spectrum analysis, biometric tracking. "Good." Zilak leaned closer to the monitor. "Because no one is going to believe this." The cub took a step forward, not a pounce, not a lunge, a step. Hesitant, cautious, its massive paw, capable of disemboweling a full-grown Xylothian, touched down softly on the arena floor. In the observation gallery, someone's breathing apparatus malfunctioned with a wet wheeze. Cadet Kyle Thas realized he was holding his personal recording device with 3 hands, had been filming for the last minute without conscious thought. Around him, cadets from species that had been mortal enemies for millennia stood shoulder to shoulder, unified in their collective inability to process what they were witnessing. "She's not moving like prey," Cadet Lirana whispered. Her thermal sensors focused so tightly on the scene below that her vision had narrowed to a tunnel. Her body language, it's all wrong. Prey freezes or flees. She's relaxed? No, Kael'thas breathed. She's confident. That's what predators look like. Apex predators. She's reading as... He couldn't say it. Couldn't voice what his combat training was screaming at him. Because Amelia Williams, who stood barely 1.7 meters tall, who had no natural armor, no venom, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning, was somehow projecting the same biosignature as something higher on the food chain than a Valkyrian cub, which was impossible. There was nothing higher on the food chain than a Valkyrian. Oh, you're just scared, aren't you? Amelia's voice drifted up through the speakers, soft and rhythmic, each word carefully modulated. Big, scary place. Lots of noise, don't know where Mama is. I know, sweetheart, I know. The cub's tail, which had been lashing in agitation, slowed. Its dorsal spines, which should have been fully extended for a kill strike, were now barely raised. And its eyes, those predator eyes that had been the last thing 47 cadets had ever seen, were locked on the human's face with an expression that the Academy's xenobiology database had no classification for. Sir, Professor Zoranix is here, Arhil announced. The senior xenobiology professor materialized beside Zilax, took one look at the monitor, and went perfectly still. That's not possible, he said in the flat tone of someone watching physics break. Valkyrian cubs imprint on maternal signatures at birth. Those signatures are species-specific, pheromone-based, hard-coded into their neural architecture. A human can't. He stopped, stared. Is that cub leaning toward her? It was, fractionally, microscopically, but definitely leaning. Amelia Williams kept her hand extended, kept her voice soft and steady, and waited with the patience of someone who had done this 1,000 times before, with something else, somewhere else, in a context that made sense. Sir, Arhil's voice was barely audible. The Valkyrian attaché is on comms. She's asking what the emergency is. Zilax opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Tell her, he said slowly, that a human is making contact with a Valkyrian cub, and the cub hasn't attacked. The silence that followed was longer than it had any right to be. Then, repeat that? The attaché's voice carried the careful tone of someone suspecting a translation error. You heard me correctly, Zilax said. And you'd better get here fast, because I think we're about to witness first contact between our species. Again. For the first time. On the monitor, the Valkyrian cub took another step closer to Amelia Williams. And in the observation gallery, Tactical Instructor Dirax, a veteran of 40 campaigns and holder of the Academy's highest combat honors, discovered that his voice had completely abandoned him. This violates every known behavioral pattern in the xenobiological database. Professor Zoranix's voice had gone clinical, the tone scientists adopted when reality stopped cooperating with their models. His appendages flew across his datapad, pulling up centuries of research. Valkyrian cubs operate on pure instinct until age 3. No reasoning. No social cognition beyond pack hierarchy. They categorize all non-Valkyrians as either threat or prey, and anything that approaches them is... Attaché Janira is on screen, sir. Arhil interrupted. The Valkyrian cultural attaché's face filled the monitor, scales gleaming, ceremonial crests fully displayed. Commander Zilax, I must protest this emergency summons. Our cubs are sacred, and any suggestion that one has been brought to your facility without proper... She stopped. Her eyes found the secondary screen showing the arena feed. What is that human doing? We were hoping you could tell us, Zilak said grimly. Janira stared. Her translator made small clicking sounds as it struggled with her silence. Our cubs don't. She started again. They never. Another pause. There is no precedent in 40,000 years of recorded history for non-violent contact with an unbonded cub. It's genetically impossible. The territorial aggression reflex is autonomic. It can't be overridden by... Teacher Williams. Zilax activated the arena comms, his voice carefully steady. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm, Amelia responded, not breaking eye contact with the cub, which was now close enough that its breath would be fogging her face if Valkyrians exhaled moisture. Kinda busy here, Commander. What exactly are you doing? Oh, he's just scared and posturing, Amelia said casually, as if explaining why paint was wet. All that charging and spine-raising? That's fear aggression. He doesn't actually want to fight. He wants me to back off so he feels safe again. Professor Zorinix made a sound like a database corrupting. Fear aggression? Valkyrian cubs don't experience fear until neural maturity at... Sure they do. Amelia's lips quirked in a slight smile, though her gaze never wavered from the cub. You all thought he was attacking? Oh no, honey, if he'd been attacking, he wouldn't have stopped. Predators don't hesitate mid-hunt. This little guy's just doing the animal equivalent of puffing up to look scary. She laughed softly, and the sound made Kael'thas's combat computer spike with contradiction warnings. Laughter. She was laughing. Reminds me of the kindergartners on picture day back on Earth. All that screaming and running around. They're not being bad. They're just overwhelmed and don't know how to say it. You just let them come to you. Never chase a scared baby. Kindergartners, Vexia whispered. She's comparing a Valkyrian cub to human children? Scared, Janira repeated faintly. She thinks the cub is scared of her, of... The attaché's scales rippled with an emotion the translator couldn't parse. On screen, the impossible became undeniable. The Valkyrian cub sat down, not collapsed, not crouched for a pounce. Sat, haunches on the floor, tail curled around its body, head tilted slightly in that universal expression of animal curiosity that every species somehow recognized, despite it being supposedly unique to each. By the void, Zorinix breathed. It's displaying trust posture to a human. That's the instinct supremacy theory. His voice cracked. The foundation of Valkyrian sociology is that their species operates on unbreakable biological imperatives. If a cub can override territorial aggression, then everything we know about genetic determinism, about instinctual behavior patterns, about the nature of... He didn't finish. Couldn't finish. Because Amelia Williams had just reached forward and was now scratching the Valkyrian cub behind its ears. Its ears. The kill zone. The area no living thing touched without losing appendages. The most sensitive, most defended, most instinctually protected part of Valkyrian anatomy. The cub leaned into her hand and made a sound. What? Janira leaned so close to her screen her face distorted. What is that sound? The database has no classification for it, Arhill reported, his voice hollow. It's not a hunting call, not a distress signal, not any documented Valkyrian vocalization. It's purring, Amelia supplied helpfully, her fingers now working through the cub's mane. Or close enough. Contentment sounds. Every baby makes them when they feel safe, even the scary ones. The cub's eyes had half closed. Its dorsal spines lay completely flat, and it was ignoring, completely, utterly ignoring, the 200 cadets pressed against the observation glass above. dozens of them from species that Valkyrians had classified as prey for millennia. Our threat assessment protocols, Zilak said slowly, his command training finally cracking under the weight of paradigm collapse, are based on the assumption that predator-prey relationships are fixed, immutable, that a species either fears you or hunts you, and no amount of training changes biology. The entire Galactic Peace Accord, Vexia added, her voice distant, is structured around species segregation based on predatory hierarchies. We separate races because we assume their instincts will override socialization. The Third Expansion War, Kael'thas whispered from the observation gallery, his tactical training forcing connections his conscious mind didn't want to make. 6 million casualties. Started because Valkyrian and Xylothian colonies were placed within proximity. Everyone said conflict was inevitable because of instinct, Lir'ana finished. Because biology is destiny. Because some species just can't coexist. On the monitor, a human who'd been a kindergarten teacher hummed softly while petting an apex predator that was now trying to nuzzle closer to her warmth. Commander Zilak stared at the screen and felt 300 years of military doctrine quietly disintegrate. Because if a human could override a Valkyrian cub's aggression in under 5 minutes, using nothing but tone and body language and what she called never chasing a scared baby, then what else could they do? What other universal constants were just assumptions no one had bothered to test? How many wars had been fought over differences that might have been bridged by someone who actually understood that fear looked like aggression, and aggression often meant fear? And maybe, just maybe, biology wasn't quite as fixed as everyone thought. "Get me the High Command," he said quietly. "And the Galactic Council. Everyone needs to see this." "All right, sweetheart. Let's get you back to Mama." Amelia stood in one fluid motion, and before anyone could process what was happening, she'd scooped the Valkyrian cub into her arms. The command center exploded with alarm sounds. Every biological monitor spiked red. The cub weighed 40 kilograms of pure muscle, claws, and teeth. Carrying it should have triggered every defensive reflex it possessed. Instead, it tucked its head under Amelia's chin and made that impossible purring sound again. Vexia couldn't form words. "She's cradling it like a puppy," Kael'thas finished from the observation gallery, his voice numb with shock. "She's holding an apex predator, like humans hold their companion animals." "He just needed someone to be calm and confident," Amelia explained, adjusting her grip as the cub squirmed to get comfortable. "Animals can smell fear, you know. Chemical signals in sweat, changes in breathing patterns, micro-expressions. You all absolutely reeked of terror, so of course he got more agitated. Fear is contagious." "Humans have been doing this for how long?" Janira asked faintly. "Domesticating predators? Oh, tens of thousands of years." Amelia shrugged, nearly dislodging the cub, who made a small chirping sound of protest. "Wolves, big cats, bears. We've got species on Earth that would classify as apex predators on most planets. We just figured out how to talk to them." "Talk to them," Zorinix repeated. "You're saying predator hierarchy is a social language, yeah. Dominance, submission, trust signals. It's all communication. You just have to learn the dialect." She paused, tilting her head. "Wait, do other species not do this? How do you handle aggressive animals?" "We avoid them," Zilak said quietly. "Or eliminate them if they pose a threat. The concept of handling an apex predator is..." The arena door slid open. An adult Valkyrian, twice the cub's size and radiating enough predatory menace to make the observation gallery's rear rows evacuate instinctively, stepped through. Every weapon system in the facility locked on. Zilax's hand hovered over the emergency containment field. The adult Velcarian took one look at Amelia holding her cub, and her entire posture softened. Ears forward, spine relaxed, head lowered to expose the neck, the universal submission signal across a dozen species. "Hey there, Mama," Amelia said warmly. "Your little guy wandered off. He's fine, just got overwhelmed by all the excitement." She walked forward, casual and unhurried, and deposited the cub at his parents' feet with the practiced ease of someone who'd returned countless lost children to worried guardians. "There you go, baby. Back to Mom." The parent Velcarian made a low, rumbling sound. "Gratitude," the translator suggested tentatively, though the emotion markers seemed confused by the subservient context. Then parent and cub touched noses briefly, before the adult gently picked up her offspring by the scruff and departed through the still open door. Just like that. Crisis over. Amelia dusted off her hands. "So, are we still doing combat training today? Or is everyone too freaked out?" The silence stretched for 5 full seconds. "Commander," Arhill said carefully, "I need to file an incident report." What do I say?" Zilax stared at the empty arena floor. At Amelia Williams, who was now checking her datapad like she hadn't just invalidated 3 centuries of xenobiological theory. At the command center full of staff who looked like they'd witnessed divine intervention. "Human neutralized critical threat through methods unknown to galactic science," he said finally. "Recommend immediate protocol revision and He looked at Janira's screen. The Velcarian attaché had tears streaming down her scales. "Commander Zilax, I'm formally requesting that the human teacher conduct seminars on interspecies communication. If this is possible, if our cubs can be reached this way, do you understand what this means for our people? That every assumption we've made about your species might be wrong?" Vexia offered quietly. "That we might not be slaves to our instincts," Janira whispered. "That biology isn't destiny. That we could be more." In the observation gallery, Cadet Lear Anna turned to Kael'thas. "Did we just watch the entire foundation of galactic sociology collapse in real time?" "Yeah," Kael'thas said, still recording, "and she has no idea she even did it." On the arena floor, Amelia Williams checked her lesson plan and smiled. "Right. Today we're covering hand-to-hand combat basics. Everyone pair up." 200 cadets exchanged glances. A single thought shared across 17 species. We are not prepared for this. "Start drafting a human interaction doctrine," Zilax ordered, his voice carrying the weight of someone making history. "I want every predator species classification under review by end of cycle. And contact the Velcarian embassy. Tell them we're open to Tau Tau discussing supervised cub visitation programs." "Sir, the Academy Curriculum Board is already requesting a complete overhaul of cross-species psychology courses," Arhill reported. "And we're receiving transfer requests. Cadets want into Teacher Williams' classes." "Of course they do," Vexia muttered. They just watched her rewrite xenobiology. On the arena floor, Amelia had moved to the equipment rack, completely unaware of the bureaucratic earthquake happening above her. "All right, hand-to-hand basics." She pulled out training mats, her movements efficient and practiced. "We'll start with falling techniques, then work up to..." She paused, glancing up at the observation gallery where 200 cadets stood frozen. "You all okay up there? I know the little guy was startling, but everything's fine now." Under her breath, just loud enough for the audio pickups. On Earth, we'd just call that recess duty. Zillax felt something that might have been a stress response, or possibly a laugh. He wasn't sure anymore. "Commander," R. Hill said quietly, "High Command is flagging your report as paradigm shift protocol. The Galactic Council wants a formal inquiry. We're also receiving requests from 6 species for human-animal handling specialists, whatever those are. Tactical doctrine revision committees are forming." Vexia added, "If humans can communicate with apex predators, our entire approach to conflict resolution might need..." "Should probably mention humans spar for fun." Amelia's voice drifted through the speakers as she consulted her datapad. Zillax's head snapped up. What did she just say? "Oh no," Vexia breathed. In the observation gallery, Kylthas turned to Lirana. "Did she say, for fun?" "We're not prepared for this species," a Xylothian cadet whispered. "We're really, genuinely not prepared." Amelia Williams, former kindergarten teacher from Earth, looked up at her students with a bright smile that somehow made every survival instinct in the room start screaming. "Okay, everyone, find a partner," Eind.